And I was moaning about it. And my husband, in his typical manner, he said, well, instead of moaning, why don't you do something about it? And I said, that's it. That's right. I'm going to start an Indian condiment food business. And I'm going to show the people of England what really Indian condiments are about.
Welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Just sit back, relax, and learn from the leaders of today. It's a journey. Each one is different, unique, inspiring. Let's get started. This episode is powered by J Ventures, a community-driven VC fund in Silicon Valley, in partnership with Leumi Tech, sponsored by Hippo Insurance, Upwest Labs, Turing, Hillel at Stanford, Leap, and in media partnership with CTech. Welcome to another episode of 20-Minute Leaders. Today we're talking to an engineer-turned-food entrepreneur. Her name is Swati Biwal, founder and director of the Cheeky Food Company. Swati is a computer engineer and mathematician by education, food entrepreneur by work, and mother at heart. She finished a bachelor's in computer science and a master's in mathematics at one of the leading universities in India. However, 3 jobs, 4 countries, and 2 children later, she realized that the corporate tech world was not for her. With a £200 investment, Cheeky Food has now grown into a well-established British brand of premium Indian condiments. Meet Swati. Swati Biwal, welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very well. Thank you, Michael. How are you?
I am great. Thank you. I'm really excited for us to be doing this show together. Generally, I know that people, when they go study computer science and then mathematics for their masters, they end up doing, all sorts of different things. They don't always go and start a food business. And so I'm excited to hear about your interesting journey and how you even got there. And so I have to go back to you studying in one of the leading universities in India. You're an engineer by profession. What led you even to study computer science and mathematics?
You know what? I'll just say it. I'll just put it out there, as silly as it sounds. Computer science was the leading subject at the time. I did my university when in 1999, and the world was moving into tech. The world is still moving into tech, and it just seemed like that would be the way forward. And it is, it just wasn't for me. So I jumped in thinking, well, this is what, this is on trend. Thinking analytically always came quite easy to me. I always had, science always appealed to me. So it just seemed like a natural progression. It was only when I sort of, I even enjoyed learning computer science. I even enjoyed doing mathematics, and I still enjoy those aspects. But I just think that the tech world that I worked in, primarily from 2004 to 2008, just didn't appeal that much to me. And I've been following some of the recent latest developments in tech, and I wish, that is what was happening when I was in the tech world, because it certainly sounds quite interesting, much more interesting than what I was doing for work.
Interesting. And so as you're finding yourself in this situation and you're trying to understand what it is that you want to be doing, I imagine that it can't be easy to take, a life and a career that you're building and saying, you know what, this is not for me. It must be a really scary thing to do.
I don't remember it being scary as such. I think I just remember, I remember 6 months into my first job telling one of my colleagues, I said, I'm not going to stick around here for very long. And I think the reason for that was that I always wanted to be in a more customer-facing role. I couldn't see the tangibility of what I was doing. I could not see the real world impact of what I was doing. It was quite far removed from seeing any impact of the work. And so it sort of just came quite naturally to me. And I think the way my life progressed, I still stuck it out in tech for about 4 years. But I think the way my life progressed and the fact that I became a mother soon, at the end of these 4 years, it sort of pushed me into a sort of a maternity break. And it gave me time to sort of think about what it was that I really wanted to do. And then when it came time to go back to work, I just said, well, you know what? Tech was not exciting enough to leave my kids behind, so I need to find something else. And it just happened that I found my passion in food.
Did you ever think of starting a food business when you were growing up,
Oh,
when you were studying? Was this ever a dream of yours?
not at all, not 1%. And that is why I think like life throws you curveballs that you just do not expect. I'll tell you, Michael, like I never entered my house kitchen till I was 25 years old, until I was sort of forced to fend for myself. I think there was a certain sense of non-achievement attached with cooking when I was growing up, especially for women in India. So I always thought, well, I'm more than this. I don't have to be in the kitchen like the women of my generation or like the women of previous generations. And I was in some ways trying to, I think, come away from it. But it was only when I sort of culturally moved away from my home country and I moved into a new land of being in England with my family, I realized that food was really the strong, almost like the umbilical cord that was holding me back to my culture, to my roots,
Mm.
and that is where I found my calling. And I just went, into the deep end.
So walk me through those first few weeks or months. You're 200 pounds in savings, I believe, and you're saying, I'm going to start something new. I'm going to start cheeky food, right? And what is happening there? How do you even come up with an idea? How do you decide on the theme? How do you, get the right people to make the recipes? How do you actually build a food business from that?
Uh, so okay, I'll tell you. This is how the food business started. My husband and I, we were having dinner one night. Kids were in bed, and we just happened to have a condiment that we had got off the supermarket here in England, and we just ate and we said, "Well, this is quite shit. This is not what Indian condiments are supposed to taste like." And I was moaning about it, and my husband, in his typical manner, he said, "Well, instead of moaning, why don't you do something about it?" And I said, "That's it. That's right. I'm going to start an Indian condiment food business, and I'm going to show the people of England what really Indian condiments are about." And so the interesting part about coming up with the recipes, so the next 1 week were absolute whirlwind. I had two young kids. I was sort of like looking after them full time, but also trying to work out in my head what were the recipes that we really wanted to launch. And the interesting bit is, like most traditional cultures, our recipes are not written down. They are just passed verbally from generation to generation. So here I
Wow.
was on the phone with my mum and my mum-in-law, and saying, "Well, that mango pickle that you made, like how do I make it exactly again?" And they were telling me over phone, "Oh, well, you add a pinch of salt, right? Now, how do we convert that of salt into a proper, tangible recipe that I can commercially create and sort of replicate, production after production?" So there was a lot of back and forth. There were a lot of recipes that went wrong. And this was sort of my post 8 p.m. Kitchen table project, because I would put the kids to bed, and then I would come into my kitchen and I would start my time with my cheeky recipes. And we just sort of looked at what we had available, what we enjoyed eating. And I think one of the things that really helped me in selection of the recipes was being a busy mum in London. I sort of knew what worked for families. So, I didn't want anything too complicated. I wanted something that would appeal to people living in London, having busy lives, and could just chuck on their food and add tons of goodness and flavor to their everyday meals. And that's really just how it went.
And so I can assume that your family were your first customers. They were really the guinea pigs for a lot of these recipes, right?
Yes, as they always are. Yeah, my family and my friends were the guinea pigs, and it so happened that while I was at this time, it was coming up to Christmas, and there are a lot of Christmas markets and Christmas fairs around here. So I just booked a table for like £10 at the local Christmas market, got some jars. I knew enough about design that I could create my own logos. We printed them. We cut them out with like literally going back scissors and some A4 sheets. We cut out the labels, we stuck them on with glue, and that's just how we launched it. And that was sort of putting £200 in, thinking, that's it, let's see if this works. It sold out on the first day. and the rest, as they say, was just like organically one step at a time.
And so one step at a time, and as you're scaling your business and you're growing it and you're getting validation from people, how do you strategically go about it? Do you have this, grand vision of where you're going to take this endeavor, or is it really day by day? You're just saying what happens and what do you feel like doing? How do you
I would say
operate?
when I started the business. So, when I started the business, my grand vision was really retail. I wanted to see more and more of my cheeky jars in the biggest supermarkets in the UK. But I think one of the hardest learnings, as I think when you're an engineer, you sort of like to work to a plan, and it's almost that if the numbers behave, you can stick to the plan. But I think one of the hardest things as a food entrepreneur was that people's palates change, people's preferences change, the food business, the industry changes. And so you have to be quite nimble footed in terms of being able to adapt to that. So what we found is actually that strategically we've come away from that vision of retail, and we found that more and more of our products appeal to food manufacturers, to hospitality, to restaurants, to food service. And so we've just basically adapted our strategy to grow as a premium condiment business, serving to these clients more B2B rather than B2C.
Interesting. And so when you're deciding on your steps, and I obviously know very, very little about food strategies. I'm thinking, as an entrepreneur, when I'll choose whatever type of business I want to run, I'm going to have a bunch of different models of business models, revenue models, partnership models that I can just read a bunch of books and say, okay, yeah, well, this one makes the most sense for my business. I'll go and try with this one. Where do you get the inspiration from yourself as you're entering a world that you just don't know about?
Yeah, it's I don't know where. You know what? Like, I think it's not as I in my head. I don't keep it as complicated as that. I just really take one day at a time. I have about a 3 month, a 4 month vision for the business. Every 4 months, we stop, we take stock of what's happened, we see where we have to go. And I think that kind of nimble strategy has really helped us adapt especially during COVID, where the best of strategies could have failed you because nobody was prepared for what was coming. And so the fact that our business was quite lean in its structure, and that we had always sort of, we were always quite light in our step and light in our head. And we just thought, well, we'll just see, does this stick? For 4 months, we give it 3 or 4 months. Does it stick? It does. That's good. We continue. It doesn't, well, we change strategy. So that's just how we've adapted. So I don't even know if that's the best business strategy to follow, but it works for us.
No, it sounds great. And so tell me a little bit about Cheeky Food, where you are today, just for context of this of this great endeavor. What is happening with Cheeky Food today?
So Cheeky Food, we still operate in the retail range, but a lot of our retail customers, took the hit during COVID and they had to be shut down. So our presence is mostly online, where we grew our business 200% in 2020. Wow. And what we have also done is that we have strategic partnerships with a lot of the leading manufacturers and hospitality customers in the UK who use our products on their recipes. And the way we develop these relationships is basically we become their arm of NPD for condiments. We do the NPD, we create them the recipes that they then take back to their menus. And that is how we've really expanded into some of the leading names in UK hospitality.
Wow. And so and how long has this been going on since you started Cheeky Food?
In its current form, 6 years.
6 years. And so over this past 6 years, what are some things that really, maybe took you by surprise or inspired you about this endeavor? Obviously, I'm sure that there's a lot of things, in that you've discovered about yourself and your passions that I'm going to get to in a second. But from a business perspective, what are some things that really took you by surprise that you said, wow, I really didn't expect it to go this way, or I didn't expect this is how things operate in this world?
I'll tell you one of the examples that I've still not been able to get out of my head. So when you go into a supermarket and you see these sales, for example, like buy three get fourth free. I just thought that was a sale by the supermarket. I had no idea that it was the brand behind that product that was actually funding that sale.
I had no
So,
idea
so
either.
that's like one of the yeah, but like interesting. So when you see all these penny sales, it's actually not really the retailer who's taking the hit of it. It's the brand. So one of the things that I absolutely didn't expect in the food business was how heavy the marketing is, and just absolutely right from day one, you have to go big bang on the marketing. Marketing, I think, is one thing where I have really struggled in the business, and maybe which is why that organically it has appealed to me to be more B2B rather than B2C, because um, uh, I just find that kind of spend on marketing really hard. Coming from an Indian background, I'm just like, oh, that's like money wasted. Like, I'd rather make more jars out of it.
I think
But
it's
that's
also
what
more of an
it
engineering
is.
mindset.
Yeah, yeah, actually, that's a good point. That probably is a good point because I think marketing has been my big pain for the business, and I absolutely underestimated, and I still underestimate just how marketing extensive any consumer facing product based business can be.
Right. And so now a little bit more about your journey. You start off engineer, mathematician, tech, food entrepreneur. How have you grew, personally, internally, one of the categories, mindfulness, business in
I
mindfulness.
Do you know what, Michael? I think one of the things that the business has really given me is that I do not have a boss. And that can be scary, but absolutely, it can let you expand your wings in ways that you cannot imagine. It can be both your curse, but also your boom. And I think it has worked very well for me that there is no safety net. And so every decision that you take in a business, so it sort of like comes down to, are you a mindful person? Are you really aware of the decisions why you're taking it? So often in a hierarchical job structure, we tend to say, well, I'm taking this decision because it's a hierarchical decision. It's been sort of forced upon me. So I'm just doing this. But when you're sort of your own boss, you really have to question why you take the decisions that you take. And I think that is what the business, I think I did have a streak like that, which is why I was drawn towards entrepreneurship. But I do definitely think that running a business for 6 years, you can often take a step back and think, am I really doing this because it satisfies some part of my ego? Is it because I like my name out there? Or is that really because I really want to satisfy the why of why I started this business was to bring a great quality product to people. So, so the business at every decision, every point, even the decision to have this podcast together with you, it's a little bit like, you can introspect and you can think, am I doing this because I just want to put my name out there? Or do I really have something interesting to say that can be helpful? And I tend to take those decisions sort of quite seriously, and I like to interrogate myself why I take the decisions that I take, and that's really helped me evolve as a person, which I don't think I could have done if I was working for someone else.
I think that is perhaps the most inspiring thing I have gained from this conversation, and I've gained a lot of insights from this conversation. But this idea of interrogating yourself, and this idea of consistently asking yourself, why are you doing what you're doing, and having the privilege of having to do that, because anybody can do it, even if you do have a boss. You can always ask yourself, why did I do this and not that? But the idea that you're forced to do it as a practice because otherwise it's not going to work. I think that's beautiful, and it's something that I strive to do, both in the projects that I do have a boss and I don't have a boss, and I think it's just really, really cool. Swati, I have a few more fun questions for you if you're ready.
Yeah, absolutely. Go on.
All right. What is your favorite subject in middle or high school?
Oh, maths.
Okay. One of your role models, somebody that
Uh,
inspires you?
Naval Ravikant. He's actually in the tech world. So yeah.
Okay, wonderful. And 3 words that you would use to describe yourself, and why those 3 words?
I'd say I'm passionate. I'm very resilient. I'm very hard to, um, yeah, passionate, resilient, and very hardworking. And the reason I say it is that those 3 qualities just define me at the core of the person that I am.
I love it. Swati, thank you so much. This is really, really great. I appreciate you taking the time to be here, and stay safe and stay healthy.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.